Hey everyone, Chris of Midlife Crisis Media here. Welcome to Film Collection 2024's live stream. This deals with the 4K UHDs, beginning with the letters T through Z in my physical media collection. This is going to be the final stream in the movie series, in the film collection series. This is the end of it. I have nothing left to talk about after this. After the stream is over, like once I've discussed all of the 4Ks sitting over here, I will leave it to you, the viewers, to decide whether or not I continue with these streams with other things in my collection. So we'll jump that hurdle when we get there. So originally I've been saying, I think I said it last week and the week before, that the letter T was going to get its own stream. And then after looking at my collection, I was like, there's maybe not enough to cover one stream. And when it comes to everything after the letter T, maybe not either. So maybe I should just combine everything and just do it all at once. So this might be a little bit longer of a stream than usual, because when you combine all of these, T through Z, it ends up being quite a lot. I mean, I definitely could have split this off into two, but when I looked at it this morning, I was like, maybe I should just do it all. When I was at work making the thumbnail, I was like, maybe I shouldn't. And then I was just like, just do it all. So this is, like I said, the final film collection live stream. Whether or not we continue with other collections of mine, I'll leave it up to you all. So let's jump into it. The first movie that I will talk about tonight, beginning with the letter T, is a sequel. The sequel to my favorite film of all time. Did it need a sequel? Not really. Was I sad that it happened? No, because my favorite movie of all time is based off of a book, and there was not only a sequel to that book, but a prequel written to that book. And when the sequel to the movie was announced, I assumed it was going to be based off of the sequel novel, and it turned out it was not. It was completely new fabrication by the writers and the director. And yeah, I ended up running out to see it. I did win tickets to see a sneak preview of this like 2 weeks before it opened, but I decided not to go. I got 2 tickets actually. It was like for me and a guest, and no one was available to go along with me to see it. And basically, they're saying on the website that I used to get these tickets from, if you say that you're going to have a +1 and you don't show up with a +1, you might as well not show up at all, because you will be banned from getting tickets for a while, because it's like a waste. So I won the 2 tickets, and because I couldn't get a +1, I decided to stay home. I still won tickets after that, so it wasn't a big deal. The movie I'm talking about is T2 Trainspotting. I do think the T2 is stupid. It reminds everybody of Terminator 2, which is stupid, and I thought it was really dumb. Instead of just calling it Trainspotting 2, they decided to do something they thought was clever. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a train number, like Train 2 or something, but it's dumb. Just Trainspotting 2 or whatever. It is not based on the book sequel. The book sequel was actually called Porno, and it was about all the crew from the first book getting back together in Scotland and making like a porno movie together. And no, that is not what this is about. But it is like a 25 years later. Is it a 20 or 25? I think it's 20. A 20 years later sequel, which basically is like catching up with everybody. It's a real-time sequel. So the 20 years has passed for everybody in the cast, and now we see where these characters are at 20 years later after the first film. And starts off with the main character, Ewan McGregor, who plays Renton, having like a heart attack, and ends up going back to Scotland because he, has lost his job. He doesn't really have much of a life outside of like what he had set up for himself at the end of the first movie, and ends up like falling back in line with 2 of the 4 friends in his group from the first movie. Begbie, who's played by Robert Carlyle, is in jail after what he has done, not only in the first movie, but other things he has done since. And he finds out that Renton's back in town. Nobody knew where Renton was after the first movie, because he basically ran off with the money that they had gotten for that drug deal at the end of it. And when Begbie finds out that Renton is back in town, he makes an effort to go after him so he can kill him. So it's like part comedy, part drama, part thriller, a little bit of action, kind of a music video at times. There's some parts where it's like crazy, but I love these characters. I think they are great, which is why the first film is my favorite film of all time. The only thing is, it's like the director, Danny Boyle, he's also aged 20 years since the first movie, and his energy level has dropped significantly. So where the first movie was always moving, it was like really fast paced, had a really nice editing style, it was always moving. This one kind of like feels sluggish, like the characters in it, that have grown old and tired. So does not feel like the first movie, but I guess that's the whole point. It's about aging. So I do like it. I don't like it nearly as much as the first movie, but I'm not sad that it exists. Next up, we have was an upgrade for my Blu-ray of Tales from the Dark Side. The movie I saw, this is, I think, one of the first horror movies I saw in the theater after I lifted the horror movie ban off of myself back in like 88 or whatever. I remember seeing a few episodes of Tales from the Dark Side on television, and I thought it was really cool, but it was on at a weird time. So it was on pretty late at night, like on the weekends. Never really got a chance to sit down and watch it regularly, kind of like the Friday the 13th TV show was on at like 11 p.m. on Sunday nights, which made no sense. But having a television in your room that could pick up a UHF station kind of helped. So I could do it when everybody else was doing other things in the house and couldn't hear that I was watching something in my room. But this predated that. So it's an anthology horror movie that is like, I do believe 3 stories, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 3 stories, and then there's a wraparound. And the wraparound is Deborah Harry, Blondie, has kidnapped Joey Lawrence's younger brother, whose name I can never freaking remember. Which Lawrence is it? They don't even have his name on the damn box. But she basically captures and cooks children and serves them to dinner guests, like for these parties that she's known for. And in order to keep him occupied while he's locked in this cage, she gives him this book that has all these horror stories in it, and he keeps reading them to her in hopes that she'll be distracted enough that he can find a way to escape. And whenever he reads a story, we see that story played out in the movie. First one's about a mummy that's resurrected to take out a bunch of assholes on a college campus that have wronged the guy who now owns or now can control this mummy. It's Steve Buscemi. Julianne Moore was like her first big thing. Christian Slater. And then the second story is about a rich man who is being tormented by a cat from hell. And it stars David Johansen and William Hickey. And it has one of the nastiest scenes in a horror movie I've seen. At the very end, it is disgusting what happens at the end of that story. And the third one is about James Remar and Radon Chong, who kind of fall in love after the night that he is attacked by like a gargoyle in an alley. And like the relationship that forms because like he was just attacked and he's kind of feeling vulnerable, and she finds him and helps him, and they fall in love and have kids, and it gets fucked up. And it's really fun, really good. It's not nearly as good as Creepshow, but I like it enough to want to have it in 4K. This was like one of those surprise movies from last year that I really didn't know much about. I saw the trailer and I was like, okay, that looks kind of cool. Is it going to be cool? I don't know. And I ended up loving it. It was one of my favorite movies from last year, and that's Talk to Me. This is an Australian movie made by a couple of YouTubers. I don't remember what their names are. Danny and Michael Philippou, who were like YouTubers who were doing like backyard wrestling stunts and stuff like that. And then they started like upping their filming game, like the way that they filmed things. And they started to get like a style, and they ended up getting a grant from the Australian government to make a movie. And that was what this is. And it's a really cool take on a horror movie. It's kind of about peer pressure and like dealing with guilt and grief. There's this thing going around parties with the youth. And it's a mummified hand that looks like it's trying to shake your hand. And if you were to grab it and say, talk to me, you will see a ghost, random ghost in front of you. And if you say, I let you in, they will possess your body. And you have like 90 seconds before they start to actually take hold. And in that 90 seconds, it's almost like they will talk through you to the people in the room, but the person they are inhabiting, it's kind of like a high. It's kind of like drugs. And they show the progression of people like letting the ghost stay in them longer and longer and longer. And it deals with one girl in particular who had just lost her mother, and she's seeing her mother whenever she says, talk to me, when she does this thing. And it gets really messed up and it goes to really twisted places. And I absolutely love it. I thought it was a really cool, creative, new kind of horror movie. I hope that those two brothers make more because they have a promising start with that. Next up is Team America World Police. This is by Trey Parker and Matt Stone from South Park. This is a movie made up starring nothing but marionette puppets, the ones that are on strings. And they're very well made. They were all made by the Chiodo brothers, who most people, like in my friends group, the film fans, know from making and directing the clowns from Killer Clowns from Outer Space from the 80s. And they do fantastic. These things, their faces are very well articulated. They do make funny use of the limbs being all limp and everything. But when it comes to like the faces and stuff, they're really well animated. And I like it a lot. And it basically is making fun of America, thinking that they are the world police. At the time that this was made, it was kind of like that. So real fun movie. I have not watched it since the theater. It's still sealed since I bought it. I got this not too long ago, but I need to watch it again. But I remember quite liking it, and it has that song that everybody knows, that America, fuck yeah. So how's everybody doing tonight? If you're in the chat, let me know who's here. Chit chat and whatnot while I'm discussing all these flicks. The next one is a movie that I wanted to see in the theater, but I never got around to it. It just didn't happen. Usually tends to happen in the summer. But ended up watching it on, Paramount Plus, and I was like, I messed up. I really should have gone to see this because I ended up loving it. And that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. So this is trying to start a new series of turtle films, apart from the Michael Bay ones that had come out in the 2010s, I think they were. This is animated, and at first, one of the reasons why I wasn't all that interested was the animation style. It's computer animated, but to me, just in the trailer, looked like they were trying to mimic the Spider-Verse movies. But in reality, when you watch the movie, they are animated completely differently. The style is almost like colored pencils, I would say. It kind of has this colored pencil look to everything, and I love it. You can kind of see it here, the way that they are drawn. But it's really funny. They actually cast kids as the turtles, like real teenagers, and like the way they all talk with each other, interact, feels like real kids for a change. It's almost like watching the Goonies, because the way all the kids in that movie kind of talk made you feel like they were real. I mean, they weren't characters that actors were playing. They actually felt like they knew each other and had been friends for years. So I really like that aspect of it, and I like the voice cast too. I mean, it's weird having Ice Cube playing a villain who is like a anthropomorphized fly called Superfly, and I thought it was kind of stupid and cheesy, but it works. But it also has one of the funniest chase scenes in, I think, film history. That is set to a very funny version of a song that I love, and I will not ruin it if you have not seen it. When it happens, you'll know. If you have seen it, you know. If you know, you know. Next up is another great movie, I think, by Christopher Nolan, and that is Tenet. This is the movie that was released like right in the middle of COVID. This was supposed to be the movie that revitalized the film industry when the COVID restrictions lifted for like less than a month, like right in the middle of 2020. It was like summer 2020, I want to say. And the theaters, I think, opened up for like 2 weeks, and I went and saw two different movies. This was one of them. The other one was The New Mutants. And then they basically shut back down again because people started getting sick all over again. And the thing about this was I went and saw it opening night with some friends, and for some reason, I've bitched about this before. Christopher Nolan has this thing where he overdoes his sound mix to his movies when it comes to the music and the sound effects to the point where they drown out the dialogue. And when you have a high concept sort of movie like this, where dialogue is important for like to find out what is going on and to make sense of things, to intentionally drown out what people are saying makes no sense to me. So when I first saw this in the theater, I was not a fan. I was like, it was cool. It had cool ideas. I just wish I knew what was going on because I couldn't hear anybody saying anything. So when it first came out, I was like, yeah, it's okay, but I've seen better. Came out on home video. I picked up a copy because I knew that it looked great and I'd now be able to watch it with subtitles. And I did put those subtitles on, and now that I'm able to actually understand the movie, I love it. So the whole idea behind this is a terrorist has devised a way to travel backwards and forwards in time. And we're not talking time travel. We're talking actually being able to reverse time. So you go into this contraption and you become inverted. And now you are moving backwards through time. So now when people view you, you're walking backwards. If you think you're walking forwards, you're really walking backwards. And you're moving backwards through time. And it's like this really cool thing when you see it happening where there's people moving forward in time and backwards in time interacting. It is one of the coolest things ever. And it's almost like an end of the world type of scenario where like they're going to destroy the way time works. And this FBI agent or CIA agent has been recruited into this new department called Tenet, which is to stop what's going on by using this time inverting equipment. And it's really great. And it's very complicated. There's a lot of plots going on at once, a lot of characters to deal with, but I think it's pulled off extremely well. There are some rad visual scenes in here where you see a building explode in two different time period, like timelines, where you see a building explode, which means if you're moving forward, it's imploding on itself until it forms a building. And then you see another part of the building explode directly after that. It is super cool when it happens. And I love it. It ended up becoming like my movie of the year of 2020 because after the rewatch, I was like, okay, that's rad as hell. This one gets no respect. It bombed theatrically, even though I think it just got released at the wrong goddamn time. Why would you release a movie like this, which is obviously a summer tentpole movie, in October? Like in October, everyone wants to watch horror movies. Why would you release like a high concept sci-fi movie, a sci-fi action movie? And that's Terminator Dark Fate. When it comes to the post trilogy, like when you have Terminator 1, 2, and 3, and then there's like all the other ones that are always trying to start something new. Like Genesis was one. You had Salvation, which I hate. I think Genesis is okay. This one was the best of the bunch. And it's basically trying to start up a new timeline using what happened after Terminator 2. It's almost making it look like Terminator 3 never even happened. So another one of those revisionist sequels or a requel, as they're called now. So at the beginning of this, you see young John Connor and Sarah Connor after destroying, what would become Skynet, like on vacation, and another Terminator, another Arnold Terminator, shows up and kills John Connor. And it turns out that Terminator was sent as a backup to, like, I guess the way they describe it is a bunch of Terminators were sent throughout different points in time just in case Terminators failed to do what they needed to do to kill John Connor. So one that was left over ended up tracking them down and killing John Connor. And now it's like, okay, now the future is going to happen. It flashes forward like 20 years or whatever. And now there's a new person who is a target of the Terminators. And there is no Skynet now. Now it's this thing called Legion, which is essentially the same thing. And that Terminator who killed John Connor has like evolved. There's no self-termination mode that they have. So once the Terminator killed John Connor, it's like, okay, my mission is over. Now I just have to blend in. And it actually like becomes sentient and gets married and as like an adopted son and everything. And Sarah Connor comes back into the picture when she realizes that there's somebody else out there that is like John Connor that the Terminators are trying to kill in order to prevent the robots from taking over in the future. And it's like starting a whole new timeline. And I thought it was really fun. It's really clever. The idea behind the bad Terminator always having some weird power now. Each movie, the power of the bad guy Terminator gets weirder and weirder. Like the first one, it's just a robot, covered with skin. Second one, it's made out of liquid metal. Third one is an endoskeleton, an endoskeleton like the regular Terminators, covered with liquid metal. Okay. Fourth one were ones that didn't even know they were Terminators. Fifth one was a Terminator that was made out of basically metal shavings that could change shape like the liquid metal ones, which was kind of dumb. And then in this one, it is another metal endoskeleton with a liquid metal like overlay like the TX from Terminator 3, but now they can both operate separately. So the metal endoskeleton can do things and the liquid part can do things at the same time. And now there's actually two Terminators coming at you, which I thought was okay. But I think it's super fun. James Cameron actually had a hand in writing the script for this one and was giving like pointers to Tim Miller, who directed the first Deadpool movie when he did this. But I really liked it. It's the first Terminator movie since T2 that actually felt like it belonged with the timeline of the first two films, and I really enjoyed it. I just wish it came out during the summer, not October. People might have given a shit. Mega Man, get to the chopper, yeah, yeah. I'm not here to wipe your little tushies. What's up, Matt? Next up, we have I think it's still playing in theaters now. The Mega Slasher, the third film in the Mega Slasher series is, I do believe, still playing in theaters right now. That's Terrifier 2. So the day before this released theatrically, I remember reading about this on Rotten Tomatoes. And for a movie that I knew was considered gory as hell, the pre-release reviews of this on Rotten Tomatoes were like 90% across the board. At one point, it actually had a 100% approval rating. And then, like, as the actual reviews from critics came in, it dropped down to like 90. I think it eventually settled around like 85 or something like that. And I was like, for a movie that is just supposed to be graphic as all hell, I don't know what is so rad about it. I think I was curious after that. So I went to Tubi that night, watched the first movie, and I was like, this movie has zero plot. It has zero character development. Yes, it is graphic as all hell. It has some of the nastiest kill scenes I've ever seen. And it sets up a couple of things. And I'm like, okay, you have my attention. When part 2 releases tomorrow, I'll go and see it. And I went and saw it opening night, packed theater. People were like gagging a couple of times. There were people screaming and all that. There was a couple times where I winced, and I can sit through some shit. I've seen some shit. So there's a couple times where I was like, oh, damn. So it shows you how desensitized to violence I am. But where I said the first one had like no plot and no character development, this one rectified that, I think, a little bit too much. This is like 2.5 hours long. The first movie is like 75 minutes. And it's like setting up not only the backstory of the killer, Art the Clown, but also trying to set up like a nemesis for him and like this lore and all the supernatural shenanigans that are going on that are connected to Art in some way. Is it overkill? I think so. But was it entertaining? Yes, I really enjoyed it. I still have to go and see the third one. It's just another one of those movies where I'm like, I'll go see it, and that just never happens. I'm probably just going to watch it when it comes on home video. I'll just buy it blindly. So had to get this, and I do believe this is the exclusive Best Buy slipcover, because I think everything else was like this, which is the original theatrical poster. But this, I think, was the like limited edition or just exclusive Best Buy slip. So this is one of my favorite movies from the 80s, and that is They Live. John Carpenter is a god amongst filmmakers, if you ask me. Always ahead of the curve. Me and my buddy Jeremiah, that I do my podcast with, all the time talk about how John Carpenter is ahead of the curve. They Live is pretty much what's going to happen right now because it's last Tuesday. So takes place like in like the near future, and like homelessness is at a all-time high in America. The rich are just getting richer and richer, and the poor are just getting poorer and poorer. And it turns out it's aliens who do invasions not based on like weapons and whatnot. They do it based on economics and all that. And they basically play into like rich people's greed and all that, and just basically run a planet dry of their resources and then move on. And like they do make a bunch of people rich, but what are you going to spend that money on when there's nothing left to buy? Because everything's been used up by these aliens. Man, that's kind of what's going to be happening in the next 4 years. And this dude played by Roddy Piper finds these glasses that basically remove the camouflage that the aliens are using. It's like a signal that disguises the aliens as humans and disguises all their subliminal messages that are everywhere from us from seeing it. So when he puts the glasses on, all of a sudden he sees the aliens everywhere. They look like that. And like all the billboards and signs and magazines, dollar bills, all have hidden messages in them. Like the dollar bills, you look at them with the glasses on and it says, "This is your God." There's signs everywhere that say submit, sleep, consume, just trying to make people spend all their money so the rich get rich and the poor get poor. And it's fantastic. Like John Carpenter was, like I always say, ahead of the curve. He saw shit coming. Then there's this John Carpenter movie, the one that got zero respect when it first came out. Like critics gave it like 0 stars and said it was one of the nastiest, most worthless movies ever made. And it's a remake, and that's the thing. Why would Universal, who had just released E.T. a few weeks earlier, release another Alien movie, but the exact opposite, where E.T. is all about holding hands and friendship and love and all that kind of shit. And then you got this one where it is just bleak and dark and depressing and graphically violent. I don't know what they were thinking, but this one did not win the box office like E.T. did that summer. John Carpenter, I think, was like his most expensive movie to date. It was his most ambitious. He loved the original, The Thing from Another World, that came out in the 50s, I want to say it was. And I remember watching that movie a few times when I was a little kid, and I thought it was pretty cool. And then this came out, and it basically is more faithful to the original short story that it's based on, called Who Goes There, where it's an alien that can mimic you. It basically like absorbs you into it, and then it can mimic anybody it wants that it's absorbed. When it happens, it's disgusting. When it changes, it's disgusting. They show horrific things happening to people in this movie and the prequel that they released 10 years ago. It's great. It's like Cold War paranoia type of stuff. It's like communism. Like you don't know who is an alien, and it makes everybody crazy in the movie, and it's awesome. It's like a great paranoid thriller with horrifically awesome like makeup effects and physical effects. Absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite horror movies. This is not one of my favorites. I bought this for completion's sake. That's Thor: Love and Thunder. This is the 4th Thor movie in the MCU, and after I loved the 3rd one, I loved Ragnarok. I thought it was really fun the way they changed like the visual style of it compared to where the first 2 movies were kind of trying to be down to earth. This one is the Ragnarok was just super colorful and goofy and funny and kind of embraced the absurdity of everything involved with the MCU, and I thought it was great. So when Taika Waititi, who directed Ragnarok, came back for another one, and they were able to bring Natalie Portman back into the fold, who had like sworn off movies like this because she was like, they were saying like, you're going to play another version of Thor in this, and she was like, I'll do it. I was like super excited. And then I started hearing people at work saying, yeah, it's not that great. It's like a little too much. And then Jason of Corpse Flood Gaming is like, yeah, dude, like I like when there's humor in it. I don't like it when there's just humor for the sake of humor and it's not even funny. It's like we're just throwing stupid jokes at you because why not? And not trying to tell a story. Don't get me wrong, there is a cool story here. Like Gore, the villain played by Christian Bale, his whole deal is awesome. Like his storyline and the way it's resolved and everything, I think is fantastic. It's really well handled, really dramatic. But like when it's just Thor, like even the stuff with Natalie Portman with Jane and why she is able to turn into like an Asgardian for, whenever she holds Mjolnir and all that is really cool too. And that's sad too. But like whenever it's just Thor doing stuff, it's really boring and like stupid and like silly for the sake of being silly. Like, he got Stormbreaker. Is that what it's called? Stormbreaker, the axe that he got in Avengers Infinity War. And Mjolnir has been reformed, and that's what Jane is wielding, and that's what's able to turn her into like a version of Thor. And now that Mjolnir is back together, it has like a personality, and it's mad at Thor. It thinks he's cheating on Mjolnir with Stormbreaker. And when he has like a conversation with the axe and the hammer at the same time, it is one of the dumbest freaking things ever. And there's just like pointless characters introduced, like Hercules and Zeus and all this kind of stuff. Like, what does this have to do with anything? Just keep like, no, it was like too much. I think this series should have ended after the third one, but I guess because Ragnarok made a ton of money, we'll just make another one because Chris Hemsworth seems to be the only one of the few people from the original, characters from the first Avengers that still wants to make movies in this universe. So as long as he's willing, I'm guessing they're going to keep on doing it. But I was not a fan of this one. I thought it was not nearly as bad as I don't hate it as much as I hate Dark World, the second Thor movie, but it's nowhere near as good as the first or third. This one I need to watch again. I think I tried to, and I started it way too late at night and I fell asleep. But this is one of, I think, Terry Gilliam's first movie, and that's Time Bandits. This is the Criterion Collection version, and it has like a holographic cover, which I think is, it's cool and all, but like, is it really necessary? No. I used to watch this on cable all the time. I didn't really quite get it when I was a little kid, but this came out like when I was little. So there's like a bunch of little people who stole God's map of the universe and end up like hijacking this kid who's in like a shitty home environment to go along with them on these adventures through time. And they meet like Robin Hood and Agamemnon and all these other historical characters. And they end up coming up against like I can't remember what they called him, like the almighty evil or like the embodiment of evil. The evil genius, that's what they have on the back here, who wants the map for himself so he can undo everything God has done. And it's weird, it's funny, it's charming. I love the characters in it. It's just kind of, it's got that Monty Python weirdness to it, which I love. So I had to get that. I need to watch it again. This is a movie at first when I heard it was coming out, I think I put it on my list every year, at the beginning of every year, on my blog that I haven't really used. I only use it like once a year now. Geektastic Film Reviews. I put like my list of my favorite and least favorite movies of the year. And then at the bottom of it, I'll always put like the 5 or the 10 movies I'm the most looking forward to and the 10 I'm looking forward to the least. And this was on my list of the least favorite movies I was looking forward to because I'm not a fan of the first movie. This is a sequel to, and that's Top Gun Maverick. I am not a fan of the first Top Gun at all. I do not like it. Every time I would try to watch it as a kid, I would just change the channel because I thought it was boring. And every time I tried to watch it as an adult, and I'm not exaggerating, I would fall asleep. Not joking. I bought a 3D Blu-ray of it. For some reason, Paramount remastered the movie for Blu-ray and made it 3D out of nowhere. Never was released in 3D to begin with, but whatever. Bought it thinking the 3D would make me want to watch it. And I remember putting that headset on because I watch everything in 3D in my PSVR headset, putting that big thing on, the contraption, strapping it to my head, watching Top Gun. And no joke, 20 minutes in, I fell asleep with that headgear on. How? But I did because I find it boring. But the trailers, when I finally saw this and realized that the guy who directed Tron Legacy, which I loved, was directing this, I was like, just force yourself to watch the first one, get it over with, and then we'll go see the second one. So I watched it. I forced myself to watch the first one all the way through. I still don't like it. I think the first half is terrible. Second half is okay. But this one is far and away 100,000 times better than the first one. This one is a fantastic movie. Like the thing I didn't like the most out of Top Gun was I thought that Maverick was a horrible character. I thought he was a horrible person, treating this woman that he's chasing after like shit all the time, and people love him for it. I mean, like like emotionally abusing somebody, and they're like, "Oh God, just do me because of that." Ugh, I hate that crap. So his character not only has evolved in this, and he's actually a nicer character. And I believe the love story in this one compared to the first one. The first one, it's just like, what is happening? The action scenes are fantastic. The story is great. I absolutely love it. Yeah, it's got that pro-America bullshit that I can't stand. But for the most part, this is a great, great movie. And the last half an hour of this movie is probably some of the greatest action I've seen in a while. And this also, like, so I said Tenet was the movie that everyone was expecting to like revitalize the box office after COVID. Well, the two movies that ended up doing that after COVID were Spider-Man No Way Home and this. This like in America alone made like 600 million bucks. Worldwide it made like well past 1.5 billion, I do think. So that worked. And then the next movie that Tom Cruise made nobody gave a shit about, which was the Mission Impossible 7, which I loved. And the trailer for Part 8 just came out, and I can't wait to see that. But they're making another one now. They're talking about it because that was so popular. And it basically propelled Glenn Powell into the stratosphere as an actor. Like, nobody knew who the hell Glenn Powell was until that. And he has like a minor role in it. And now he's like, has starring roles in movies now. He's the lead. And he's really good. I like him. I think he's got a great presence. Yay! My eyes, yay. Do I really need to talk about Total Recall? It's based off of a short story called "We'll Sell It to You Wholesale," and which is the whole idea behind it is you can implant memories of fake vacations in your head, and the whole idea behind the movie is you can, like, this one dude that Arnold plays has one of those memories implanted, and you don't know if it's true or not, if it's actually the program or if it's real life, where he's actually a secret agent. By putting that in his head, it unlocked his repressed personality, and now he's actually on a secret agent mission because he wanted to be a secret agent in the memories. And it's great the way it plays with your, like, what's real and what's not. Like, you don't know if everything is a dream brought on by that implant or if he actually was a secret agent. And the ending gives you no answers, which I love, kind of like Inception. So absolutely fantastic action movie. Arnold, I think it's one of his best movies. Like, I could watch this any day of the week, and it has some of the best quotes. And get you asked the Maz. Absolutely love it. Consider that a divorce. I need to watch this again. I've seen the original version of it. This has 3 versions of the movie on it, which is why I bought it. And it was on discount. It was on sale. And that's Touch of Evil. This is directed by Orson Welles. He actually stars in it too, but it also has Charlton Heston and Janet Leigh in it. And this has, like I said, 3 versions of the movie. You've got the theatrical version, which is the one I think I've seen. There's a preview version, which is, there's like a test screening of it. And then based on what was said in the test screening, Orson Welles went back and re-edited the movie to the theatrical cut. And then there is the reconstructed version, which is like I guess, based on the notes that Orson Welles had as to what he wanted the movie to be like. Somebody re-edited the movie to more closely resemble that. I just wish it would say how much longer this is. It said it was re-edited in 1998. Oh, right here. The reconstructed version is 111 minutes. The theatrical version is 96 minutes, and the preview version is 109 minutes. So the reconstructed version has 2 extra minutes in it. But it's like a thriller. Like I said, it's been a while since I watched this. I think I watched this when I was in college. I need to watch it again. I don't even remember what the plot was. But I liked it enough. I remember liking it enough that I would want to buy it. Next up is Trading Places, one of my favorite comedies. Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy, and Jamie Lee frickin' Curtis getting topless. Would you help me visit my home sack? And it's a bum and a rich person trade places, like in the title, because of these 2 rich bankers who make a bet that they can't turn a poor person into a successful banker like them. and what would happen if somebody who was a successful banker was everything was taken away from them and they had to live on the streets. Like, would they be able to survive? And it's really, really funny. Like, it's sad that there's people like that out in the world, and there will be now. But I always loved this one. Why my parents let me watch that back in the day, knowing that there was nudity in it like that, and language and stuff, and I don't get it. My parents were weird. Like, you can watch stuff like that, but if people were getting killed with a machete, absolutely not. Saw this in the theater twice, and I cried both times when I saw it. I was a kid. That is the Transformers, the movie. This is the animated film that came out in '86, I think it was. Still deep into my love of Transformers back then, even though I was like 11, which would probably be the point in time where I should be growing out of playing with toys. I was like 10 or 11. But I was still deep into it. I don't think I got out of Transformers until I was like 13 or 14. Like, I was almost in high school when I got out of that. But absolutely loved the cartoon. I still watched it. I think at that point in time, it was on every morning. Bozo the Clown, his show on public access, or was it WGN, who's our like one of our major channels here when I was a kid, would play like parts of an episode every day. And I would watch it every day. I did not care. And I still had all the toys. So naturally, this came out. We rushed out to see it. And lo and behold, they killed off Optimus Prime in the first 20 minutes. And I was not prepared. And I just ugly crying in that theater. And then I did it to myself again because a friend of mine who lived on the same block as me, who the only thing he cared about was football and sports. So every time I'd be talking about Transformers, and he'd be like, I don't care. G.I. Joe, I don't care. Thundercats, I don't care. Video games, eh. So I remember when I told him, I was like, dude, they do things in this movie that they would never in a million years do on the television show. We're talking like kill characters. And he's like, oh, really? He's like, I kind of want to see that. So the second time I saw it, we brought him along. And he was like, okay, yeah, that was pretty cool. Still not going to make me a fan out of the Transformers. And then there's me in the theater. Optimus dies. I love it. I still love it to this day. I think it has a great soundtrack, both the score and the songs, even though the songs are cheesy as all hell. I love the animation. I love the actors that they got to play some of these characters who did not return for the show when it continued after the movie came out. But some of the stuff that goes on in the movie was traumatizing to me as a kid. But I still watch it pretty much every year. So had to have that. And this is a really rad steelbook version of it in 4K. And it comes with this 35 years of Transformers the movie thing. And it has a bunch of like lobby cards. That's Megatron right before he shoots Ironhide right in the face. Rodimus Prime I think that's actually Hot Rod when he is holding the Matrix for the first time. Optimus, like right before he gets killed by Megatron. And Unicron, who's the big bad in the movie, played by Orson Welles again, after they cut his head off, or they blow his head off, and it's like in orbit as like a moon around Cybertron now, which I thought was really, really cool. And actually came into play in the animated series after that. So absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it. It was dark. It was kind of like, to me, revitalizing for my love of Transformers. Like, I do admit it was kind of getting stale because it was always the same stuff. And now and the whole ulterior motive of this movie was to get rid of the old toys by killing them off in the movie so they can introduce new toys for you to buy. And it worked for us. Because like I said, it revitalized my love of the series and the franchise. So I ended up getting all of those toys. And then we have, honestly, the closest I think we're ever going to get to getting a live-action version of the animated film. And that is Transformers Rise of the Beasts. This basically has tons of stuff lifted right out of the animated film, like Unicron. When Unicron shows up, there's like an orchestral version of Unicron's theme being played, and you really have to listen to it to hear it. But they have a bunch of stuff in there from that movie. A bunch. Like the suit that Spike's son wears in the movie. Dano, he gets that like robot suit that lets him transform. That happens in here too. And on top of that, you get a bunch of Beast Wars things. So they're trying to bring in the younger fans of Transformers who fell in love with the Beast Wars stuff and not the Generation 1 stuff like me. And they're not horrible in this either. I hated the way the Beast Wars stuff was mixed into the animated series that was on Netflix. I thought that felt so shoehorned in, and they were terribly designed, and I just thought it was out of place. Here it kind of works, and this is more of a sequel to Bumblebee than any of the other Michael Bay movies. It's kind of like it was like a Bumblebee kind of as a soft reboot because Optimus and them were never on Earth at this period of time in the 90s where the movie takes place. You know, they didn't come down until the late 2000s in that movie. But here, they're all here in force. So kind of like negates everything that happened in the Michael Bay movies, and I'm okay with that. And also we get RC, who I love. Next up's Tropic Thunder. I don't think I need to talk about this one too much. It's a classic now. Making fun of Hollywood, Robert Downey Jr., Jack Black. I never can remember his freaking name. Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller's name is one of those names that just always disappears from my screen. But it's about the making of an action movie, and then the action movie becomes real. And it's like, what do actors who are pampered and do method and are drug addicts do in reality when they think that they're in a movie, which is actually real. And I love it. There's so many classic lines in here, and Robert Downey Jr. like in blackface, but it's not meant to be nasty like everyone seems to think it is. It's a joke. It's a joke about method acting. I absolutely love it. I need to watch it again. See if it holds up in 4K. This is very disappointing. Not the movie, it's the transfer for True Lies. So James Cameron did this whole thing where he'd been putting off releasing Aliens, The Abyss, and True Lies on any kind of high def. Well, Aliens did come out on high def. It came out on Blu-ray, and I have it in a set with all the other Alien movies. But like when it came to True Lies and The Abyss, he like always just wanted to wait to release them until he can get the technology to remaster them correctly. And then when 4K happened and AI happened, that was when he's like, that's the thing. So he remastered Aliens, True Lies, and The Abyss in 4K using AI. And in some cases it works. I've not seen Aliens yet on 4K. Spoiler alert. So I can't comment on that. I did see The Abyss in the theater when the remaster happened. They released it theatrically in IMAX or on IMAX screens for like one night. I went and saw it, and there's maybe 2 shots where I noticed it. And usually you can tell when AI has jacked something up is because everything looks smooth like a mannequin when it comes to people. And there's one shot that's like an extreme close-up of Ed Harris's face. And I remember saying in the theater to myself, going like, oh, look, he has no pores. Like his face was just smooth like a piece of plastic. And then I read all these reviews of True Lies 4K because it was released in the UK digitally before it came out over here. And all the UK reviews were like, what the hell did he do this movie? Everybody looks like they're made out of plastic. And I was like, I hope our version is better than that. And then when it shows up, the day it showed up, and I got this for a steal, and I'll tell you that in a minute, or how. The day this showed up in the mail, I popped it in, and yeah, they were not lying. This has been what's called DNR, digital noise replacement, to death. And it's basically to get rid of all the grain on the screen. When you use film to make a movie, there will be grain. That's what film does. James Cameron apparently likes using film, but doesn't like the grain. So he basically had a computer digitally remove all the grain, and with that, you digitally remove all of the details of certain things, including like faces. And everybody looks like plastic, and it sucks. The movie's still great. Don't get me wrong. I love True Lies. But there's this character. I talked about this on the recent pickup stream. I'm about to sneeze. The recent pickup stream where I was talking about this, I watched it. There's this character played by Grant Heslov, who is like the third person in the group of Arnold and Tom Arnold, who they're having like a meeting at their office with Charlton Heston. They're like basically giving him like a debriefing. And whenever they show Grant Heslov, he looks like he has no detail to his face. It's like he has eyebrows, eyeballs, nostrils, and a mouth. And there's like no cheekbone. There is no creasing when he opens his mouth. There's no like ripples in his forehead when he like lifts his eyes. It's like he looks like he's not real. And I'm like, why did he think this was a good idea? Why did James Cameron do this? And he basically ruins the movie to the point where I don't know if I'd ever watch this version of it again. I might just go and buy a DVD of it to watch it. Because this is some bullshit. It's still a great movie, though. And the thing was, I picked this up and a bunch of other stuff in my collection off of Disney's old Disney's Movie Club, and I got in on that because it's kind of like if you remember Columbia House, where they would give you some free stuff at the start, but you had to buy something full price every month. After a certain amount of months, you can cancel your membership without any consequences. Well, the same thing with this was they were selling a bunch of Blu-rays of movies that weren't available anywhere else. You could not buy them in stores. They were only available exclusively on that Disney Club or Disney Movie Club website. And I could get 4 of those movies that I wanted for a quarter each. So I can get 4 movies for $1. But the thing was, every month they send me an email saying, like, here's our full price movie of the month. You have to tell us you don't want it. Otherwise, we're going to charge you for it and just send it to you if you want it or not. And they ended up canceling. Like, Disney got out of the physical media game completely. And when they were closing their website down in the last few months of it, they basically said, buy one movie at full price. Everything you buy after that is 60% off. So I basically ordered The Abyss and True Lies off the website. I paid full price for The Abyss, which was like $30, and I got this for 60% off. So I'm not too sad that the transfer ended up being complete ass because I did not pay full price for it. And I did that multiple times on that website, and I got a bunch of stuff for like pennies compared to what the price was, full price was. And the 2 last movies, or the 2 final movies in the tease, are the 2 Twister films. So we got the original Twister with Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton. Saw this in the theater opening day, like, and we're not talking at night. We're talking like during the day. Like, I went and saw it Friday afternoon, and it was a sold out crowd. Absolutely loved it. This is like when CGI was starting to take off, and like, was it 96? And every movie, it just looked a little bit better and better and better. And when you revisit this, yeah, it doesn't look great. It still holds up pretty well. And it's a fun action movie. It was written by Michael Crichton, who wrote Jurassic Park. And this ended up being like one of the huge hits of that summer. And I had a blast watching it. Every time I watch it, I love it. I think it's a great soundtrack. Action scenes are fun. I like the characters. And then Twisters, the sequel, finally came out this past summer. And one of those movies that I kept on saying, I'm going to go and see it. And if I go and see it, I'm going to go and see it in 4D. And turns out that this opened up the week before, what was it, Deadpool and Wolverine. And this only played in 4D for 1 week. And then Deadpool and Wolverine like replaced it at all the 4D theaters. So I never got a chance to, even though a coworker did. And he said it was worth it, but he had spinal injury afterwards. But ended up skipping it completely. Just never could get out to go and see it. And if I was like, oh, I'm going to go see it after work today, work would be over. And I'd be like, I am too tired to sit there and focus on a movie in the theater. I will just fall asleep. So ended up not seeing it. And then I ended up just renting it on demand. And I was like, I'm an idiot. I should have made an effort to go and see it. This is actually really fun. Is it better than the first movie? I think they're comparable. They're almost on the same wavelength. But this one has, I was just talking about Glenn Powell, being in Top Gun, Maverick, and then all of a sudden he starts getting all these leading roles. And this is one of them, him and Daisy Edgar Jones, who I loved in Fresh. If you've ever seen Fresh on Hulu. And Anthony Ramos, who was in that Transformers Rise of the Beasts movie. He was great in that too. It's a really fun movie. It's not a reboot like everyone thought it was going to be. It's like a legit sequel because the movie starts off with the main characters, one of them being Daisy Edgar Jones here, using Dorothy Ford from the first movie to do some kind of a final project for college. And everyone except for Ramos here dies within her little class group because she miscalculated things. And it's her dealing with like grief and PTSD from it happening, and ends up having to go back out into the world to like work with it. It doesn't happen off the bat. She's asked by Ramos, who now is now running or co-running a company where they're trying to get information about tornadoes to sell to like the weather. Was it the Weather Channel or something? I can't remember. Or colleges. I don't remember exactly what it was. But he asks her to come out to help him refine their designs for things. And turns out Glenn Powell's like a storm chaser on YouTube, and the two of them end up teaming up to actually like find a way to predict tornadoes like in the first movie. It's really fun. I like the characters quite a bit. Action scenes are fun. One of my favorite comedies of all time, and that is UHF, starring Weird Al Yankovic. I saw this in the theater, and it was sold out. I remember that clearly. I remember Weird Al was kind of not cool when this came out in like, was it 89? I want to say like Weird Al was huge in like the early to mid 80s. And then he started to like peter out at the end of the 90s, which is why I think this happened. If you can feel it, bang it. Wait, what? The hell? Oh, you talking about Glenn Powell? Do that thing. That thing he does with like those drills in his truck so he can get right inside of a tornado and like he anchors himself to the ground so the tornado cannot pick him up, and then he launches fireworks into it so everyone who's watching can see the tornado. It's kind of cool. Yeah, UHF, that's not a thing anymore, I don't think. But yeah, Weird Al wasn't really cool in the late 80s anymore, but he kind of bounced back in the 90s when he did that cover of Gangster's Paradise by Coolio. So this was, I think, an effort to put him back in the public eye, and it kind of backfired because this movie bombed horribly. I think it was like that sold out show that I went and saw like Friday afternoon during the summer this came out was probably all the people that ever saw that movie in the theater. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I got it. I got the jokes they were telling. It was me, my brother, my mother, and this girl, Kim, that was the daughter of one of my mother's friends that I kind of knew in passing, came with. And my brother, me, and my mother are like tears in our eyes laughing at some of these jokes. And I remember distinctly looking at Kim at a couple of times, and she's got this like confused look on her face like, I have no idea what's going on. And there was one joke that I would not have gotten if it wasn't for my dad talking about it about a week prior to seeing this, where he was talking about the treasure of the Sierra Madre, and he did that whole quote like, badges? Badges? Well, we don't need no stinking badges. And he was like doing that when we were like, I think we were driving to Ohio to visit our family, and we went to a toll booth. And this is when you had to like stop at the toll booth, open the window, give money to somebody, and they would lift the little barrier and you could pass. And he did that to the person taking the money. I thought it was weird, but if he had not told that joke or mentioned that quote, when the whole Badgers scene happens where one of the guys who has a show on the UHF station where he talks about like weird things you didn't know animals could do, he's getting like a shipment of new animals and a bunch of them are badgers, and the guy goes, here's a bunch of badgers, and the guy goes, badgers? We don't need no stinking badgers. I had tears in my eyes. My brother had tears in his eyes. My mother had tears in her eyes. And Kim was like, huh? I still watch this every year. I absolutely love it. It is super funny and clever. And the way that Weird Al parodies songs, and don't get me wrong, there's a bunch of parody songs in here too. The way he parodies movies of the 80s is pretty classic. I absolutely love it. It is so much fun. They were going to teach poodles how to fly. No. Did you know that turtles are nature's suction cup? Okay, Fifi, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go! Oh, man. Yeah, I remember. Oh, man. And then you just hear it again in the background. Oh, man. I love it. I love that movie so much. Next up is Unbreakable. So during this series, I've talked about the 2 sequels. Well, one is kind of like a sidequel, and one is a sequel to the sidequel and this. Glass and Split. I absolutely love Unbreakable. Unbreakable is probably my favorite Shyamalan film. And the thing was the way the trailer was set up, and there was only one trailer if I remember correctly. It was just a scene from the movie, and that's all it was. And it was this scene where like you see Bruce Willis, and he's got like he's sitting like on a gurney in like an emergency room, and his shirt is kind of ripped open, and you're kind of looking at him through the curtain that's been like left open a little bit, and a doctor walks up to him. He's like, "You've been through a lot. You're the only survivor of this crash." And Bruce Willis is like, really? And he goes, yeah, but the big question is you don't have a mark on you. Like, you are unhurt. And that's like the big mystery is like, why was he not hurt? And I'm like, oh my God, is this another big twist thing like Sixth Sense? And I was like, okay, you got me. And then you go and see the movie, and like the first thing you see is a quote about comic books. Yeah, and I remember in the theater, like me and everyone else with was like, what? And it turns out you're watching the origin of a comic book hero and a comic book villain, just done through the way Shyamalan does things with like a big twist and everything. And another one of those movies where all the clues are in front of you the whole time. You just have no context to put them into where they fall in the end of the movie when you hear the twist happen. And like, it's one of those movies you have to watch twice in order to like fully understand it and get what was going on. And I absolutely love it for that. And it's unlike The Sixth Sense, this one holds up, I think, on multiple watches. Like, it's not like when I watch Sixth Sense now, and it just came out on 4K and I did not buy it because I'm like, I'm never going to watch that movie again. I know the twist. I watch it the second time. I see all the clues. I'm good. There's nothing left for me with that movie. There's nothing to get out of it anymore. This one is just very rewatchable, and I love it. Split, which was the sidequel, I love too. The follow-up, which was the sequel bringing Split and Unbreakable together, I did not like at all. Unable to stay awake. Well, you need to rewatch it, Peter. Get some toothpicks, prop those eyelids open like so. This I did not expect to like. So one of my personal, by the way, hello, Peter. One of my personal things that I've always said since I was a kid was any movie that is based on a video game, I will go and see it in the theater. There's no question about it. I don't care if it looks terrible, the reviews are bad. I'm going to go and see it. I don't care. And trust me, I have sat through some shit. I saw I think every single Uwe Boll movie based on a video game that was released theatrically. I saw every one of them. I saw House of the Dead. I saw Blood Rain. I saw Alone in the Dark. I saw A Knight's Tale, or what is it called? Not A Knight's Tale. In the Name of the King, the Dungeon Siege movie. I saw all of them. I saw Double Dragon. I saw Super Mario Brothers. I saw Street Fighter. I've seen all of them. And some are good. Obviously, a lot of them are bad. You'll have a glass of milk too. When I saw the trailer for this, I was like, I don't know about that because I love this video game series. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite things in the world. So I'm like, you better not fuck this up. And it came out not too long after the COVID restrictions lightened up, and that is Uncharted. The moment I played the first Uncharted game, I was like, this is one of the coolest things I've ever played. Does it really hold up nowadays? No, but when it first came out, in 2008 or whatever it was, goddamn, dude. Goddamn. That was a revelation to me. I was like, this is the way games should be, making you feel like you're in a goddamn movie. And I loved it. And then I still think the second and fourth one are the best in the series. 2 and 4 are kind of tied for me. Depending on what day it is, I might say 2 is better than 4. I don't really like 3 all that much. But because of my love of the games, I'm like, this movie better not F it up. And I went and saw it with a bunch of friends. They did not like it. I remember when it was over, I looked at a couple of my friends and I was like, what'd you think? And they were like, it was a movie. I was kind of worried about Tom Holland being cast as Nathan Drake because he looks way too young. I was not thrilled with Mark Wahlberg being cast as Sully because it's freaking Mark Wahlberg and I don't need him saying to Nathan Drake, say hello to your mother for me kind of thing. And I don't need that shit. And also way too young. Sully's supposed to be this old man. But then when you watch it, you realize it's like a prequel as to how those two people came together. It works better, and eventually the characters are going to get closer to the age that the characters are at in the video games. And at the end of the movie, also you see Mark Wahlberg with his Sully mustache on. So they're kind of itching to get there. And I thought it was a really fun movie as a prequel to everything that happened in the games. Is it perfect? No. There's way too much product placement in it, if you ask me. There's an action scene that takes place in Italy in these catacombs under the ground, underground in Italy. And right above where one of the action scenes is happening is a fucking Papa John's. And they keep showing it to you. The things that are happening underneath the Papa John's, people can hear it happening in the restaurant. I'm like, why is this even here? But I do think that Tom Holland makes a really good Nathan Drake. And once you see Mark Wahlberg start to get into the character, because in the beginning he's kind of awkward with it. Once he starts to get into the mentor thing at the end of the movie, you realize I'm like, okay, he could be a good Sully. They haven't introduced they introduced Chloe. They have not introduced Elena yet, and I cannot wait for that to happen if they make a sequel. And what I understand, this made a lot of money, so they're going to get it. They're going to make a sequel. So, talked about this in the pickup stream from September and October, and I still have not watched it. That's Clive Barker's Underworld. This is not Kate Beckinsale in skin tight vinyl vampires fighting werewolves thing. It's based on a Clive Barker, I think, short story, and it's more like a thriller. But like I said, I have not seen it, and it's about a bunch of mutants that live underground, and a bunch of teenagers teenagers or early 20-somethings get stuck underground with them and try to get out or trying to escape. Don't really know much about it. I bought it. Number one, it was on deep discount on the Kino Lorber website. And 2, I bought it so that we could watch it at our yearly horror movie fest that me and a bunch of friends do the week before Halloween. And we just ended up watching it. I brought it with. They didn't want to watch it, so it didn't happen. I'll have to watch it on my own. Hope it doesn't suck, but I can always sell it. Here's a classic, The Untouchables. probably one of the most mainstream movies that Brian De Palma has ever made. Brian De Palma, who made like those Hitchcock remakes in the early 80s with like Body Double, Dress to Kill, Blowout, and stuff like that. And always kind of risque. It was always about like having porn in there somewhere. And then like he makes a movie about Al Capone and the cops who were out to stop him, and ended up getting Sean Connery an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in this. I bet De Palma never thought in a million years a movie that he would make would get somebody an Oscar for acting, because his movies are usually pretty cheesy. And yeah, it's awesome. It's has a great soundtrack by Ennio Morricone. The action scenes are pretty rad. The characters are great. Kevin Costner is a great Elliot Ness. It's based off of that TV show, The Untouchables, that was on, I think, in the 60s or something. And Robert De Niro plays Al Capone, and he is great. There's that scene with that baseball bat that I love it. Andy Garcia, Sean Connery, and I can never remember that other dude's name. Charles Martin Smith, who ended up becoming a director, play the four people in Elliot Ness's group. Absolutely love it. Really fun gangster movie. Billy Drago's in it, and he gets a great moment at the end. Cap, what's up? All we want is Kate B fighting vampires. Don't we all? When I saw that trailer for the first Underworld movie and they show Kate Beckinsale standing on that rooftop and she like leaps off of it and then just kind of like lands like it ain't no thing and just keeps on walking. When I saw that, I was just like, this is the best movie of all time. Next up is Upgrade. This is by Lee Whannell, who most recently directed the remake of The Invisible Man, which I love, and he's making the remake of The Wolfman that's coming out too. But everyone remembers him as the writer of the first three Saw films. This is his version of like if they were making movies of Black Mirror, that show that's on Netflix, that's kind of like the Twilight Zone. If this were a feature length, if this had the Black Mirror Presents Upgrade, it would totally make sense because that's what it feels like. Peter, is the lice all gone? Peter got lice? Is that why he's shaving his head? So this dude played by Logan Marshall Green, who I do not think is a great actor, gets in a car accident and is paralyzed. He becomes like, he can't, from the neck down. And he's offered this like life-saving thing where they insert this chip into him that's kind of like AI, and it can control his limbs for him, so he'll be able to get up and about after, if they implant it. And it kind of goes awry, and it can control him, and he ends up going around killing people. And there's something very strange going on in the movie, and when it's revealed at the end, that's when I was like, God damn it, this is an episode of Black Mirror. So I like it until like the last 2 minutes, and I'm like, oh, come on. But up until that point, it's a really fun kind of sci-fi action. It's got a lot of comedy in it too. But when the killing starts, like it is like nasty. But I love it. Black Mirror is great. What's up, Asillo? So I recommend it. I actually avoided buying that on Blu-ray because I was like, how are they releasing something like that on just Blu-ray and not 4K? And I'm lucky I waited because eventually like Scream Factory decided to license it and released a 4K of it. So I'm glad I didn't have to double dip. Yeah, we just checked them tonight and they're finally cleared, but we're treating the house like it's still around for the next 3 days. God damn. Surprise hit for me. Yeah, I mean, I like it. I just don't like the last 2 minutes. Your girl's got lice? Is that like going around schools now or something? Oh, man, I remember like when I was in high school back, when the dinosaurs still roamed the earth, that one of the kids in our class got lice. He kind of lived in a kind of rundown apartment building that was like a couple of blocks away from us. And I remember like the entire like school was up in arms. Like it was like COVID times kind of thing. Like everyone thought the plague was upon us. She got it from school. Yeah, I remember we all had to have the little toothpick test. And back then when I had hair, but my hair is like, if I let it grow past a certain length, it starts to get curly and really wavy. So like I had like this mini afro kind of thing going on. And I remember that women going through the school nurse going through like my hair with the toothpicks going like, Jesus Christ, I can't even move your hair out of the way. It's so thick. Got lice from an ex in high school. It was awful. Yeah. Hey, Sigourney Weaver shaved her head because of lice in Alien 3. Why can't everyone get their head shaved? Grow your hair out again? Hell's to the no. Number one, there will be no hair right here. So I have a reverse mohawk. Next up is Us. This is the second film by Jordan Peele First one was Get Out, which I absolutely loved. I thought that was such a fantastic movie that was actually trying to say stuff with it and not just be a horror movie. So I was super excited about this. And while I do like it, I think it's not nearly as good because, and I was talking about this like after I saw it in the theater with like 2 or 3 people in my office at work, that the movie needed to be at least 10 minutes longer because at the very end, when like the big reveal happens as to what's been going on the whole movie, it's kind of like throws a whole bunch of stuff at you and then the movie just ends. And it's like, I want that explained. Like that makes no sense. And they just kind of leave you with it. And everyone in the office was like, I just wish the movie was 10 minutes longer so we got more of an explanation as to what was going on. So like a family goes on vacation, and while they're there, they get attacked by people who look exactly like them, but they're like evil. And turns out there's like evil duplicates of people popping up and killing their doppelgangers. And obviously there's going to be a twist as to what is really going on, but it is really creepy and effective for like the first 90 minutes. And then like the twists start popping up. And the first couple of them are like, I was like, oh, okay. And then when they keep on going with the twist and start introducing new ideas with it, I was like, oh, yeah, no, what? Huh? And it just, to me, didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Nope. I love Nope. And Nope is one of my favorite movies. Bring back the reverse mohawk. How about we don't? Is there a movie about lice? Like I said, watch Alien 3. That's a big part of that movie. That's why everyone in the movie has to shave their head. This is a comedy that I saw way too late in life to like. I wish I saw this earlier. Like when I see a lot of these comedies, like these R-rated comedies that I was allowed to watch as a kid, like I brought up, like Trading Places. That movie is not appropriate for like a 7-year-old. I wish I saw this when I was a kid too, because I wish I had seen it earlier. I ended up watching this, I think, in my late teens, early 20s, and I was like, where's this movie been all my life? And that's Used Cars. So if you know Robert Zemeckis, the guy who eventually directed Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3, and Forrest Gump and Castaway and What Lies Beneath, and just recently that movie with Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, where they're like digitally de-aged. I can't remember what it's called, Home or something like that. Like he had to start somewhere, and this was his first movie, and it stars Kurt Russell. And he is a used car salesman at this like really shitty lot, and directly across the street is the brother of the owner of the lot that Kurt Russell works at, who was like rich and has like this real fancy setup and everything, and he's been trying to like buy out his brother's lot for years, but he won't sell. But he dies. The guy who runs the one Kurt Russell works for, the brother there, he dies. And Kurt Russell and the rest of the crew keep trying to make it look like he isn't dead, so the other brother won't be able to buy the lot. And it's really, really funny. There's a lot of great characters in it. There's a lot of really classic lines in it. I'm not going to ruin it because I'm pretty sure not a lot of you have seen this. I highly recommend checking it out. You will laugh your ass off, especially when you start seeing the stuff going on with the color red. There's a character in here who thinks that red is the most unlucky color in the history of the world. And when he starts seeing it everywhere, it is one of the funniest damn things you'll ever see in your life. It was your least favorite? Oh, I love it because it's a remake of Jaws. Next up, we have The Usual Suspects. The guy who directed this, Bryan Singer, can eat a bag of dicks, and he probably has because he's an asshole. So this, I think I brought this story up a couple times, that this dollar theater, this like second run theater, opened up like 5 minutes away from my house back in like the mid 90s. And the first week that it was open, me and a bunch of friends went there Friday through Monday. They had 5 theaters in that second run theater. Every day we went there to watch a different movie. And it was Copycat with Sigourney Weaver, Braveheart. It was Get Shorty with John Travolta. There's this 5th movie. I can never remember what the hell it was, but one of them was Usual Suspects. And all those movies that we saw were movies that we had no interest in really watching full price. And the only reason we went was because it was $1. So saw this. I think it was the first one we saw. And when we walked out of the theater, we were like, holy crap. Like, that was awesome. It's a crime movie. Kevin Spacey won an Oscar for Best Actor or Supporting Actor for this. And it's got Stephen Baldwin, who is, I think, the worst Baldwin. Gabriel Byrne, Chaz Palminteri, Kevin Pollak, Pete Postlethwaite, Kevin Spacey, Benicio del Toro. First time I think I saw Benicio del Toro, then I realized I had seen him in a Bond movie like 6 or 7 years earlier. Giancarlo Esposito, who now everybody knows now from The Mandalorian. And it's a great crime movie, and it's all about Kevin Spacey being interviewed by the cops about this heist that he was preparing to pull off with all these guys in this lineup and how it went wrong. But is everything he's saying truthful or not? And that's what the big twist is. And it's absolutely fantastically written and acted. It's just a shame that not only is Bryan Singer a piece of human shit, but Kevin Spacey is too. Just picked this up and talked about it in the stream from the end of October. And that is V for Vendetta. You want to talk about another movie with somebody having to shave their head for reasons? There's that. Based on a graphic novel by, I think it's not Mark Miller. The guy who did Batman. Oh, Jesus, I can never remember this dude's name. Frank Miller. And it's like this totalitarian state, kind of like 1984, and everybody's oppressed. And there's a revolution coming, and it's run by this dude called V, who wears a Guy Fawkes mask, and he does like terrorist activities. And Natalie Portman here ends up getting caught up with it and becomes part of the revolution. And she shaves her head to like signify that she's giving herself over to it. I'm not going to ruin it. It's fantastic. Saw this in the theater opening night, and people were freaking cheering. Never thought in a million years I'd see something like that for a movie that was a little too, I would say, heavy for your general audience. It's actually like got a lot of stuff going on in it, but people really got into it, which surprised me. And there's a lot of really cool action scenes, and not a lot of people realize that the guy who is playing V in the movie is James Purefoy, who played Mila Jovovich's fake husband in the first Resident Evil film. But when he's being voiced in the movie, the dubbing of the character is by not Guy Pearce, the guy who played Agent Smith in the Matrix films. God damn it, I cannot remember his name now. It was overdubbed by him. James Purefoy ended up getting fired during the ADR for those scenes because he wasn't doing the voice the way the director wanted, and they brought in the guy from the Matrix to do the voice over instead. And so it's played by one actor who's a capable actor, and another actor as the voice. Started eating Toad in a Hole because of V for Vendetta. It's so good. Give me the God. What? Give me the keys. I know Peter doesn't like this one either, and I will continue to sing its praises because I love it. And that's Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. I own this twice in my collection. One is a 3D Blu-ray, and then I have it in 4K for those times where I don't want to watch it in my PSVR headset. But this is by Luc Besson, who did The Fifth Element and Leon the Professional and La Femme Nikita and Lucy. And because of Lucy becoming a huge surprise hit, he was basically given like carte blanche to do whatever the hell he wanted for his next project. And it turned out to be this, which is an adaptation of a French comic book series called Valerian and Lorelei. And American audiences have no idea what the hell that is. And I tell people when I try to describe it to them, I'm like, do you like The Fifth Element? And if they say yes, I'm like, this is the fifth element times 10. So it's actually the 100th element or the 50th element. And it's like basically Fifth Element on steroids. It is just this crazy sci-fi action comedy kind of thing. And it's hard to describe because there's a lot going on in it, but I absolutely love it. Visually, I think it's amazing. In 3D, it's beautiful. One of the best 3D experiences I've ever had. Are the actors great in it? Not really. Rihanna's in it. Why? I don't know. But I think it's really great. And like, I ended up seeing this 2 days in a row in 3D, and I saw it by myself Friday, the day it was released, and I was like, that was great. Surprised the hell out of me because I did not expect to like it. And then when I saw it the next day, I dragged my mother to see it because my brother was visiting and he wanted to see it. So I'm like, let's go see it in 3D. I'm gladly going to watch it again. And when it was over, I looked at my brother. I was like, is it just me, or is this like, because it's made by a Frenchman, is this like the Europeans' view of Americans being kind of warmongers? My brother kind of like went, I never really thought of it like that, but yeah, I think it's kind of there. That's kind of like my view of what's going on in the movie. I absolutely love it. Usual success for the keys quote. Oh man, it's been a while. Like, hand me the keys, you cocksucker. What the fuck? That's my quote from Usual Suspects. It's that in that lineup scene where Benicio del Toro can't keep a straight face because it turns out that scene was blooper material. Benicio del Toro, apparently while they were standing there in the lineup during that one scene, he farted on set. And that's why Stephen Baldwin is laughing. And Benicio del Toro could not keep a straight face because Baldwin laughing kept making him laugh, but they kept the cameras rolling, and that's why they're like slapping each other because they kept making each other laugh. That's the one that made me, I remember the most. Like, give me the keys, you cocksucker. What the fuck? I saw it once. Yeah, I've seen it a few times. I need to watch it again, see how that transfers. But like the whole thing with, after watching that Kevin Spacey documentary, finding out what a horrible piece of shit he is, and then all the shit going on with Bryan Singer, I'm okay. It's in my collection, but do I really need to watch it again? Because it's kind of. Anyway, talk about this in the last pickup stream also, and that's Village of the Damned. It's another John Carpenter movie. I love John Carpenter. This is a remake of a movie that came out in the 60s, which itself is a film version of a book called The Midwich Cuckoos. And it's about these evil alien kids. So this small town, one day, everybody in that town passes out. No reason given. They just all pass out, and they're out for like hours. When they wake back up, like 10 women are pregnant. Can't explain it. No actual signs that anything had happened to them while they were asleep. They're just pregnant. Turns out like aliens came down and impregnated like these 10 women in order to have like a hybrid kid that could start the takeover of the world. And the kids all when they're born, they all have telekinetic powers that can like convince you to do things. And they like stick together. Like they don't associate with anybody but the ones like them. And they're like, everyone is afraid of them, but no one wants to do anything about it because they're so scared. And it's really, really good. Christopher Reeve is in it. It's one of the last movies he made before he had his accident. And it's Christopher Reeve, Kirstie Alley, and Linda Kozlowski, who was in all the Crocodile Dundee movies. She was like the love interest for Crocodile Dundee. And like Christopher Reeve is really goddamn good at this. There's a scene at the end where he is like, he's had it with what's going on, and he just like lets it out. And it's fantastic. And it's one of those things where you're like, this guy is more than just playing Superman. And it's just weird that this is the movie where he like showed it. But I absolutely love it. Saw it in the theater, and me and my friends were like, I've never seen the original. I still haven't. This is pretty fantastic. Like, I don't think I need to watch the original. Mark Hamill's in it too for a little bit. He has a really good cast. Michael Pere's in it for like 3 minutes, and then he gets killed in the opening scene. But it's great. And I remember talking to Cap about this. When Cap, if you're still here, I remember talking to you about this to you in one of your streams, and you're like, I don't like horror movies. I'm like, it looks like a horror movie. It's not. It's actually an action movie. And that's a Violent Night. So here's a movie for Christmas time for everybody. So I went and saw this in the theater. Like I say, every like New Year's, I'll go to the theater and just watch movie after movie after movie until I get tired and want to go home. And I saw this, and I thought this too was going to be a horror movie because the poster, the title reminds me of Silent Night, Deadly Night. You know, that horror movie about that killer that's dressed like Santa and goes around like impaling women on like what is it called, the deer, the head of the deer that you have like hanging on your wall in your den. He like impales her on the antlers, kind of shit. It's actually Die Hard. Instead of Bruce Willis, you have Santa Claus. So Santa, who is like fed up with the way the world is, he thinks everybody's a piece of shit, gets drunk, pukes up. He's in the beginning of the movie, he's in a bar getting drunk, bitching about the way he hates Christmas now. And when he takes off at the end of that scene, he's like in the sleigh, and he ends up like puking over the edge and pukes over a whole bunch of people. And he goes to this house to deliver the presents, and that house has been taken over by terrorists. They're holding like this rich family hostage. And the little girl that's in that house is like pleading to Santa Claus, like thinking that he's going to magically hear her. She's like, please help us, get us out of this situation. Santa just happens to be there. And he's like, girl, I got you. And it's like Bruce Willis against the terrorists. Here it's Santa Claus versus terrorists. And it's awesome. John Leguizamo plays the lead terrorist, and he's having a blast. And, oh God, what's his freaking name? David Harbour, who's on Stranger Things. He plays the sheriff, is Santa Claus here. And you can tell he is having a freaking blast playing Santa. And I love it. It is a lot of fun. It's really clever. Like the things Santa can do from legends and stuff, and like the stories, to see it used to kick someone's ass is awesome. It is super fun. And from what I understand, we're getting a sequel. We need Santa to come and kick some ass. Hell yeah. You stick a candy cane up someone's butthole. Next up, we have Wanted. This is James McAvoy, Morgan Freeman, and Angelina Jolie. So this is based on a comic book. It is nothing like the comic book except for a couple of things. I read the comic book. I actually have a hardbound copy of it in my other room. And that's basically a superhero movie. It's about superhuman assassins. And we're talking like super villains like that you get in a Superman or a Batman comic book, or the bad guys. Here they kind of keep it a little more grounded. And it's about like super assassins who have the ability and the know-how to, like, the way they flick a gun when they fire it can actually like make a bullet curve in its path. And if you get good at it, you can make it round an entire room and take out people that are standing around in a circle just waiting for it to happen. It's a lot of fun. I like it. A lot of people that I know in my friend group absolutely hate it. They're like, that is just the dumbest freaking thing ever. But I'm like, it's based on a comic book. It feels like a comic book. Who cares? I get a kick out of it. I think it's really fun. And it has one of the greatest Morgan Freeman lines of dialogue in the history of Morgan Freeman lines. And there's a line, like in the whole movie, he's been calm as hell. Just the voice of reason is like, doing his calm thing. And at the very end of the movie, he goes, now will all you kill this motherfucker right here? Next up is a classic, and that's War of the Worlds. This is the one from I do believe this late 50s, early 60s. I watched this a ton as a kid, and I loved it. I loved the fact the special effects actually still hold up, even though they're like little miniature alien ships and all that, and you can see what they kind of look like right there. They look like weird birds, but like it still holds up. I love the story. It's fantastic. It's based off of a H.G. Wells novel. And to the point where there was a television show made of this in the 80s that I loved, that picks up basically 20 years after this movie took place and actually stars the stars of the movie at certain points. Like their characters pop up, which I thought was great. I need to watch this in 4K because the last time I watched this was my Blu-ray, and I thought even on that it looked fantastic. I wonder if the effects will hold up in 4K. I need to, like I said, check this out again. Maybe I'll watch it this weekend. I got nothing going on. But absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it. It's one of my all-time favorites. And next up is War Games. Saw this in the theater. Another one of those movies that surprised my mom. Like I've said it before, my mom would always take my brother and I out to go and see a movie whenever my dad would be out of town on business. And she would always take us to see like a movie on a school night, which I like, no, he never did unless my dad was out of town. I don't get it. But she was like, fuck bedtimes. We're going to go and see a movie. I remember she did that multiple times, and this was one of them. We saw it like on a Tuesday night at like 8 p.m., which is already like bordering when we would go to bed, which I thought was weird. But I stayed awake the whole time. This movie like grabbed me. It's one of those things where my love of video games probably came from. So Matthew Broderick plays this computer hacker who's trying to break into this video game company to play these unreleased games that they have on their server, and he accidentally breaks into like the government's computers and starts the procedure for World War III to happen. And it's him trying to rectify that. And it's really, really good. And it's really tense. It's like, honestly, I thought it was like, what are the words? Like prophetic, I guess, of like the way the hacker culture shit went and all that. Cause I didn't really know anything about computers. Same with Tron. When Tron came out like the year before this, nobody knew what the hell a RAM was or a ROM or anything like that, or what memory was. And it was the same kind of this, like a lot of jargon they talk in this movie was like ahead of its time. And now you watch this now and everybody knows what the hell they're talking about. So I love it. I still think it's great. And if you've ever read the book of Ready Player One, this is the movie that everyone had to interact with in order to get the egg that they were looking for. In the movie version, it was The Shining, but in the book, it was War Games they had to reenact. Wasn't it a radio play first? Yes, it was. I think it was. The book came out like in the early 1900s or whatever. So the radio play came out before that, or came out after that. Sorry. This is one of my favorite comic book movies, and this is the ultimate cut of The Watchmen. This is Mark Miller. I do believe this is a Mark Miller comic book. This is not Frank Miller. I get my Millers crossed all the time. Miller's Crossing. Oh, that's another movie. Anyway. So Zack Snyder did this after 300 because 300 ended up becoming such a huge hit. Basically, Warner Brothers was like, you made us a lot of money. Now you can do whatever the hell you want. So he made this, and this did not make a whole lot of money because it's kind of a comic book that a lot of people were saying was unfilmable because it's got a lot of weird ideas and the ending is off the wall. but he made it work by changing certain things. And I think he changed them for the better because some things work better in a comic book than in a movie. And it's absolutely fantastic. But this is another one of those things where he made this super long movie that ended up having to get cut to shreds to make it fit into what the studio wanted playing in theaters. They were like, we want a movie to be 2 hours long. And he's like, well, I made a 4-hour movie. And the idea, I think, at first was to split it in half. And no, eventually just cut a bunch of stuff out. This is the entire version of the movie, which includes this half-hour-long cartoon segment that's what's going on in this comic book that keeps getting referenced in the movie. Actually, like you go into the comic book and you actually see it being played out as a cartoon. It's really kind of cool. I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. It's visually amazing. Has a great soundtrack. The action's great. I love the characters. Rorschach is one of my favorite comic book characters now. And I love it. And this version is the definitive way to watch it. You like the Watchmen for the early... I tried to watch Watchmen once and fell asleep. It is a lot long. I will admit that. But I would say if you don't want to watch the scene with the cartoon, which makes it a lot longer, watch the director's cut version, which is great too. Like I've seen every version. I saw the theatrical version twice in the theater. I went and took a girl that I was hanging out with at the time to see it, and then I saw it with a bunch of other friends. And then when it came out on home video, I watched the director's cut, which I really liked, which is better than the theatrical cut. And then there's this. Oh, in the ship, in the owl ship, when they're playing Hallelujah. Yep, I know what you're talking about. I got you, Peter. I got you. And then there's freaking Wayne's World. Does this need to be on 4K? Probably not. But I love it. I was a huge fan of Saturday Night Live back in the 90s when Mike Myers and Dana Carvey were on. Wayne's World was one of my favorite sketches that they would do. Whenever one would come on, I would lose my mind. And like even at the time that was happening, which I think that was when I was in freshman in high school, for a final for my biology class, my teacher wanted us all to not take a test. He wanted us all to do something and present it to the class. And me and this other dude who was in biology, but not in the same period that I was, but the teacher said it was okay that the two of us collaborate. We did a Wayne's World video where I went to the God damn it, no, I can't think of it. For braces. Not the dentist. I kept on saying like ornithologist. That's a bird watcher. God damn it. I can't think of it. I was getting my braces removed that I had in junior high and in high school. Orthodontist, thank you. Why that disappeared from my screen, I have no idea. So we filmed me getting my braces taken off. And my teacher said that was okay because it was science-y related, I guess, medical. And then we did a wraparound with me playing Wayne and my buddy playing Garth. And we made a lot of jokes that were not cool, that would not be cool nowadays. And no one's ever going to see it. And I got the person who's the camera belonged to was one of my mom's friends that lived down the street. We filmed the credit sequence for it with like pieces of paper with our names on it, right? And she was also a fan of Wayne's World. And we used a song by MC Hammer as our theme song instead of like a rock song. And she gave us such shit while we were filming that opening credit sequence. And she's like, this is not Wayne's World. This is not something that they listen to. I'll be like, it's not your video. You can shut it. But yeah, that's how much I like Wayne's World. We did that for my biology class. But the movie's classic. Saw it opening weekend with a friend of mine, and we lost our minds watching it. I thought it was super funny. First time I ever saw Tia Carrere in a movie, and I was like, I am in love. And it's basically just a big budget version of those sketches, like just expanded, and it's really great. And it does not betray what the sketches were, which is what was great about it. The sequel, on the other hand, I think is kind of like, eh. I mean, it's good. It's got moments, but it's not nearly as funny. Although that does have Christopher Walken in it. Wayne's World. That was escalating an entire rack. What am I going to do with a gun rack? People giving in to the company machine. Sometimes I think that's really sad. Here's one that's available through an American label, but it wasn't available when I bought this. So I ended up getting this from Australia. Oh, there's this company called Umbrella, which I actually ordered something from, or I ordered something from them today that cost me an arm and a leg, but it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it comes with a lot of cool shit. So I was willing to pay what they were asking for it. It was a goddamn premium, but they were having a sale on their website like a year, maybe 2 years ago, and I saw this was included in the sale, and I'm like, it's from a streaming service that I don't own, so I'm never going to be able to watch it unless I pirate it somewhere. And since it was dirt cheap, I said I'll buy it. And then like 6 months later, Scream Factory or Shop Factory is like, oh, we're releasing a version of it too. I was like, God damn it! But whatever, I got it already. That is Weird, the Al Yankovic story, and this is Harry Potter playing Weird Al, Daniel Radcliffe, and the way that Weird Al parodies songs. This movie is a parody of Weird Al. It's not, nothing in here is real. It is all BS made up for the movie to make fun of documentary films and stuff like that, or biopics. And it's like Weird Al marries Madonna and stuff like that. It makes no sense, but it's super funny. And Daniel Radcliffe, it's like, have you ever thought that he wasn't that great of an actor? Just watch this. The fact that he's able to do all this weird shit and like lip sync to these ridiculous songs with a completely straight face and look like he's like doing it. He's actually singing the songs. He's great. He is so good in this movie. He's better than he has any right to be. Why he was not nominated for an Emmy or whatever, I have no idea. But I absolutely love that. I did not watch it. I bought it blindly, and I'm glad that I did. It is super fun. Never trust a company called Umbrella. Yeah, you ain't kidding. But they released some good product. One of them was a 4K gigantic box set of the 1990s Super Mario Brothers movie that came with so much extra shit. I was like, I have a copy that I bought for like $7. There's no way you're going to get 110 out of me for that. You can eat my ass. And $37 for shipping. What's the best Weird Al song for me? In my opinion, see, I used to listen to Weird Al a lot when I was a kid. I was not into music when I was a kid, really. Yeah, I would listen to what's on the radio and everything, but I never really was like, I need that album. The only artist I ever really listened to was Weird Al, but I didn't know what half of his songs were making fun of because I did not listen to popular music. So I want to say the one that I liked the most as a kid, I remember the Brady Bunch song being really cool. That was a copy. It was making fun of the Safety Dance. That one I always listened to because I loved watching the Brady Bunch when I was a little kid. So it kind of was like, okay. But like Dare to Be Stupid is probably the one I like the most. And it's not a parody of any song. It's like his own original one. But if you were to, I don't know, the polka songs where it's like a mix of a whole bunch of different songs in one, usually the ones I like the most. The Saga Begins, maybe. Oh, the Star Wars one. Amish Paradise is good too. I don't think I've listened to much of his new stuff. But yeah, Dare to Be Stupid is probably the one I listened to the most. And it was from the Transformers animated movie from the 80s, too. They played it during an action scene. Next up is, I need to watch this and see how the transfer is, but Weird Science. This is from the British label Arrow that I have a lot of stuff from, and they eventually released their stuff over here, too. But for some reason, all of their cases are like double size. Look at it compared to like a regular 4K case. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand. And the Weird Al one is like that too. It's like super thick. But whatever. Weird Science is, God damn it, John Hughes, the Chicago filmmaker that did 16 Candles and Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And this one I saw at the drive-in. Another one that was like PG-13, but kind of pushing close to R because of the amount of like sexual stuff going on in it. But my parents were like, whatever, the kids can handle it. And I'm like, I got some boobies. So a bunch of nerds, outcasts at high school, use a computer to create a woman. And it turns out to be Kelly LeBrock. And she basically teaches them not to be losers and to be cool and all that. And it's good. I like it. It's not my favorite John Hughes movie, but it's entertaining. I don't think it holds up as well as it did when I was a kid. Like I liked it way more when I was younger. But the one thing in this movie that I will say is still good is Bill Paxton playing Elon Michael Smith, the kid with the computer, playing his older brother, who's like the biggest jerk off you'll ever see in your life. The shit that comes out of his mouth, I think, was all ad-libbed, and it's hysterically funny. But it's not my favorite, like I said, but I like it. Man Boy Cave, fashionably late. Yeah, I still got some stuff to talk about though, so I'm glad you're here, bro. We're getting close to the end. We only got what, 8 more to go. Next up is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. This was one of those movies that my parents had no interest in seeing because, a cartoon movie. You know the kids are going to want to go see it, and it's going to suck. But I was talking about Used Cars being Robert Zemeckis' first movie. Well, he also made this. He went from that to this. This is like the mix of animation and live action in this at the same time, and it's also Warner Brothers, like Looney Tunes stuff mixed with Disney characters, which was unheard of at the time. But like, saw this in a theater, dragged my parents to see it, and when it was over, I remember my dad going like, "That was pretty cool." Like, surprised the hell out of it. My mother absolutely loved it. Me and my brother were like, Jessica Rabbit. I remember reading somewhere, maybe like last week, that they could not make this movie nowadays or a sequel because what are they going to do about Jessica Rabbit? Everyone would complain about the way she's designed. But whatever. Super fun movie that, like I said, blends animation and live action. Don't need to talk about it much. Everybody knows that movie. It's awesome. And it still holds up. Here's one that I had not seen for decades until I bought this. And I bought this based on a recommendation of a YouTube channel that I watched that has to do with nothing but movies. Used to be Films at Home, and now it's just Jeff Rossio, the guy who owns this channel. And he was like, this movie has gotten such a reworking in 4K that like it just, everything about the movie is super colorful and all the color pops. And it justifies buying it again if you had like a Blu-ray of it, which I did not have. I did not even have a DVD. I think the last time I had this was maybe on VHS. And it was like watching the movie all over again, like for the first time. It was that good looking. Like it was just, I could not believe this was the same movie. And it's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. This movie is super colorful and it definitely benefits from the 4K upgrade. And yes, I'm not a fan of musicals, and I've said that multiple times on this channel, unless there's something going on. This movie has a really twisted sense of humor and is like borderline child abuse at times, which is why I can sit through the songs, which I'm not a big fan of. But this is definitely better than that prequel that they just came out with over last winter, the Wonka movie with Timothy Chalamet. I tried watching that and I ended up like tuning out real quick. But Gene Wilder is fantastic. The characters are all great. I love to hate all the stupid little kids that are in this movie and watch them die in horrible ways. Die, probably not. But I love it. And it looks amazing. Willy Wonka, yep. Like, I'm a new fan of it now. I used to love it when I was a kid. I always felt bad for the shoe that got dipped in acid. Oh, yeah, and the dip. Oh, yeah. No, I like, remember when I killed your brother? I took Jeff. Those knives come shooting out of his eyes. I cannot hit high notes. I can't. My testicles have dropped. Next up is Witness, and this is another one that probably doesn't need to be in 4K, but I loved this movie since I was a kid. It's another R-rated movie that my parents let me watch because frickin' Han Solo's in it. That was the only reason. Could have been boobies. There's boobies. Could have been violence. There's violence. But Harrison Ford's in it. It's got Indiana Jones in it. It's good to go. And I had not watched this probably since it came out on home video back in the day. And I remember the reason we watched it was Kelly McGillis, that everyone was like, ooh, about because of Top Gun, is in this. And she's like, Harrison Ford has to go undercover in an Amish community because this Amish kid witnessed a murder in the city. And they know the killers are coming after them. So he's gone to this Amish community to protect the kid just in case they come looking for him. And guess what? They do. And he ends up falling in love with Kelly McGillis, who's one of the Amish women. And there's a scene where she's just kind of standing in front of him in the barn. And she goes like, guess what? And they're going to do it. It's a great movie. It is really well done, really well acted. The first time I would say that I've seen Harrison Ford in a movie where he's like really acting and not just like kind of there, like, you know, going along with things like in Star Wars and Indiana Jones and all that, where he's actually like acting like a serious actor kind of thing. I need to watch it again, though. It's been a long time. They died for sure. Yep. In the book, Charlie sees them leaving the factory at the end. I've never read the book. And if it's not in 4K, how can the kids see the murder? He literally caught them. Peter, come on. I've owned this movie twice. And then the first time I bought it because I loved it. The second time I just happened to be putzing around on eBay looking for those Korean 3D versions of movies that we never got over here on home video, and I found this Ultimate Edition of Wonder Woman. And this is in 4K, and it's 4K, has a Blu-ray, a 3D Blu-ray, and a digital HD version. I've been like, I remember telling all my friends when the DC universe kind of kicked back up in the early 2010s with Man of Steel. I was like, I hope this time when they're making all these superhero movies, we finally get a Wonder Woman movie. When I was a kid, I used to watch the Wonder Woman TV show, that cheesy one that was on in the 70s with Linda Carter. I used to watch that all the time. It was always in reruns when I was a kid. Like there was, like I talked about it when I was in kindergarten. There was like this block of shows that was on, because when I was in kindergarten, like you only do a half a day. You either did the front half of the day or did the back half of the day. I was always on the front half of the day. And when I would get home from school, like noon, there was this block of shows that was like Lancelot Link, the little chimpanzee detective guy, Ultraman, the Addams Family, and something else. Well, when I was like in first or second grade, when I'd be getting home later, Wonder Woman was always on when I get home from school, and I'd always watch it. I was a big Wonder Woman fan. I was like, she's a great character, and Linda Carter's hot as hell. What's not to like? So when they started up the DCEU, I was like, I hope we get a Wonder Woman movie finally. And luckily, they announced one right after they introduced the character in Batman versus Superman. And me and a bunch of friends got together to get it, and I've been telling them for years, I want a Wonder Woman movie. And they saw how excited I was that one was coming out, that they were like, we want to go with you too, because we want to see what you're all excited about, because we know nothing about this character. And I think all of them did enjoy it. Although I am not the biggest fan of Gal Gadot. I don't think she's a great actress at all. I think she gets by in these movies because the directors she works with are usually pretty good at coaxing a good performance out of her. But like, watch her on Saturday Night Live. She sucks. Watch her in anything that's not Wonder Woman. She sucks. If you ask me, I just can't stand her as an actress. But here she's okay. And I love the movie. I thought it was great. I love the whole Themyscira stuff, coming over during World War I, dealing with the no man's land. That no man's land scene is fantastic. Yeah, it does get a little crazy at the end with like the normal superhero shenanigans, like the big epic finale with just a big special effect-a-thon kind of thing. But I really, really liked it. And I did not get to see it in 3D in the theater. So I was like super interested in getting a copy of it. And luckily I found it on eBay, and it was not super expensive. Got him. Linda Carter was certainly a Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. For like a 6-7-year-old kid, I was like, that is the hottest woman I've ever seen. And then there's this. And the only reason I bought this is because of that. I have never been as disappointed as I have when I saw Wonder Woman 1984, or no, Wonder Woman 84. So this was supposed to be released during COVID. Obviously, that did not happen. So COVID started, I want to say, like in February of 2010. Like that was when the lockdown started. And it was supposed to have been released that summer. That didn't happen, obviously. And then HBO was like, well, we have this HBO Max thing. We're trying to draw people to subscribe to it. What can we do? Well, this Wonder Woman movie that we've been sitting on for almost a year, we'll just release it on HBO Max, and we'll get a bunch of subscribers that way. Like, this is the only way you can see it, is if you subscribe to our streaming service. And that kind of backfired. And I remember visiting my mother on Christmas Eve and saying like, oh my God, or sorry, Christmas Day. And it was released on HBO Max on Christmas Day. And I remember telling my mom, I am leaving here at 9 p.m. so I can go home and watch frickin' Wonder Woman. Because my mom does not have streaming services at her house, so we couldn't watch it there. And I'm like, I'm leaving so I can go and watch Wonder Woman. And I got home, I think, later than I expected. I ended up getting home like around midnight. And I stayed up until 2:30 in the morning watching this. And when it was over, I was like, I should have been in bed 2.5 hours ago because that sucked. This is just a whole mishmash of ideas that were just kind of like thrown together. The bad guy makes no sense. The rules they established for him make no sense. The rules for the thing that's causing all of these wishes to come true makes no sense. Why some people are able to get 2 wishes and some not, I don't know. The whole thing with them bringing Steve Trevor back, who was Chris Pine, who died in the first movie, essentially is like, so Wonder Woman makes this wish that comes true where she wishes Steve Trevor was alive again. The only way you can bring somebody back to life in these movies is have his spirit inhabit somebody else's body. So basically, Chris Pine hijacks this random dude's body, brings him over to wherever Wonder Woman is in like Israel or something at the beginning of the movie. And it's like basically she's like sexually assaulting this guy against it, like without him knowing it, because they're banging all the time. And it's not really Chris Pine. She sees Chris Pine because she's imagining this dude as Chris Pine, but in reality, she's looking at this rando and she just bangs the hell out of him constantly. So it's really creepy and weird. And like they introduced the invisible jet, which is stupid. They introduced her being able to fly, and when it happens, it's like the cheesiest freaking thing. It's like 30 ideas crammed into one movie, and none of it works. And I'm not a fan of it at all. Even Kristen Wiig, I remember saying Kristen Wiig, it's an interesting choice to play a bad guy like Cheetah, and then she's only Cheetah for like 45 seconds at the end, and it's like that was a waste of time. Did not like this at all, but I bought it because I bought this at the exact same time. And this was being sold, and it was not expensive. And I got this from Korea also. So it's a 4K and a 3D Blu-ray. And I wonder if I'll ever have the willpower to open it up and watch it again. I have no intention of ever watching it again. I'll never get those 2.5 hours back. Yeah, the sequel sucked. I agree. You have no idea. Like I said, the movie ended at like 2:30 in the morning, and I was actually up to probably 3:30 just stewing over it. Like, I remember I put, like, YouTube on or something on my television. I remember I put some random thing, and I was just sitting there going, like, that was set up to be so cool, and how could they drop the ball on that so bad? I'm like, I just did not get it. Because, like I said, I love Wonder Woman. She's one of my favorite comic book characters. And they made an animated movie about her, too. This is one of those animated DC Universe movies that goes straight to video. And I remember I watched this when I first got it, and I bought, like, a Blu-ray of it at, like, half-price books or whatever. I do not remember anything about it, though. I don't even remember who's in it. There usually is like one star. Special appearance by Jeffrey Donovan. Who? Whatever, not important. Animated Wonder Woman movie. And the last two movies, okay, so one of them, you either love this or you hate it. I like this one. I understand why people don't like it, but I like it because I think it is a definite better retelling of this story than we got previously in this film series. And that is X-Men Dark Phoenix. This is the last X-Men movie that was released technically by Fox, but Disney had already bought Fox at this point in time, and they did not know what to do with this movie. And they just kind of like dumped it in theaters to get it out of there because they planned on rebooting it for the MCU. But this had already been shot under Fox before Disney bought it. And they even made this movie go under a bunch of reshoots because now that Disney owned it, they were like, oh, the effects that were used to make Phoenix do her Phoenixy things looked exactly like the special effects that were done for Captain Marvel. So they went back and did like a whole reshoot thing so they could change what the effects looked like, just so it didn't mimic Captain Marvel's effects either. So Sophie Turner is a beautiful woman. Wonder Woman is in it. Come on, Chris. I mean, you know why I bought it. You know. Come on, it's right there. Sophie Turner is beautiful, though. I will admit it. And I've enjoyed the majority of the X-Men films, but this tells the same story that was, if you ask me, fucked up beyond belief in The Last Stand with the whole Dark Phoenix thing. They turned that into such a wasted opportunity that I was like fuming in that movie theater when it was over. I was like, you took such a cool idea and a cool storyline from those comic books, which they did justice like you would not believe in the animated series of X-Men in the 90s. Like, how did you screw that up? So when this was announced, I was like, okay, maybe they'll do it right this time. Did they do it right? No, not really. It is nothing like what happens in the comic books and the animated series, but I give them credit for trying to do cool things with it. I think the movie needed to be like 3 hours long to fully flesh it out. And here it's like an hour and 45 minutes or whatever. But I do enjoy it. I think there's a lot of really cool things going on in it. The first F-bomb in this X-Men movie. I never thought in a million years that Cyclops would be like, I will fucking kill you in a movie. And I was like, I remember in the theater going like, God damn. And there's one thing. I know Peter's going to appreciate this the most. I absolutely love the soundtrack from this movie. Hans Zimmer, who had done the music for Batman versus Superman and Man of Steel, after Batman versus Superman, he was like, this is the last superhero score I'm ever going to do. He's like, I'm done with superhero movies. I'm tired of it. They were able to talk him to come back and to do this. And then after that, he did Wonder Woman 84. I love the soundtrack in this. It is absolutely fantastic. I love like the Phoenix theme. And is it perfect? No. Is it like a good send-off for the series? No. Is it setting up something that could have been cool? Yes, but we're never going to get it because now it's being rebooted. But I know everyone I know hates this freaking movie. The people I saw it with in the theater, who I've seen most of the X-Men movies with, if not all of them, were like, I was like, was that as bad as the reviews are making it out to be? And they were like, not really, no. Like it's not great, but it's nothing, it's not terrible. And I was like, oh yeah. Everyone I know is like, that's the worst freaking movie ever made. I'm like, whatever. And then the final movie I'm going to talk about tonight is Zodiac. Just talked about this at the end of October with that recent pickup stream. This is David Fincher, one of his least successful movies, if I remember correctly. This is a retelling or a version of the story of the Zodiac Killer, and it's got Mark Ruffalo. First time I think I really took notice of Mark Ruffalo in anything. Jake Gyllenhaal, who I remember from Bubble Boy. So I remember seeing this really awful photo of him. He looks like he has some kind of disease that has like eaten away at his cheekbones or something. I don't know what the hell is going on there. And Robert Downey Jr. before he played Iron Man. And I was like, I remember seeing Robert Downey Jr.'s name in the title or in the poster, and I was just like, my God, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel there. And I try to see every David Fincher movie in the theater because he's one of my favorite directors. And for this one and Social Network were the only ones that I never got a chance to see because this one disappeared pretty quickly, if I remember correctly. Social Network was one of those that I kept trying to see and it just wouldn't happen. And by the time I wanted or had time to go and see it, it was gone. But it's super long. This has the director's cut on it, which is on a separate disc. I don't know if it tells me on here how long each one is, but the theatrical version I remember being well over 2.5 hours long, so I cannot imagine what the director's cut is like. But I remember it being pretty rad. I watched it. I rented the disc through Netflix when they were doing the disc thing and watched it. And I was like, I wish I did see this in the theater because it's awesome. And I talked about in the last month's pickup stream that there is this shot. Like, I love David Fincher's visual style. He finds really cool ways to do interesting things with special effects. And there's this shot when the Zodiac Killer is like creeping for a victim in the city. And it's like this aerial shot, almost like a drone shot that's like way over the buildings looking down. And it's locked in on this car that the Zodiac Killer is driving in. And it does not move anywhere outside of that car. It's like locked onto that car. And so as the car is driving, the car is staying in the middle of the screen, but the buildings are moving as he's driving. And if the car makes a turn, the camera turns with it and just keeps that car vertically facing up no matter what. And it is super cool and actually makes the whole scene super tense. I love it. I absolutely love it. I need to watch this again now that I own it, obviously. But that is it. That movie is killer. I fell asleep to Zodiac too. God damn, man. Get some like, what is it? The no-dos or something. Yeah, that's it for the film collection streams. Do you guys realize that I have been doing these series of streams since 2022? I've been doing this for probably over 2 years. When I started with the video games and it's ending with the... So here's the question. I said at the beginning of the stream, I'd leave it up to everybody else. So now that I don't have any other physical media movies or games to talk about in these streams, do you want me to do anything else collection-wise? Like, I could do action figure-y things. I can do like collectibles. I could do my Tron collection if you guys want, because that's something I don't think I've ever shown anybody that hasn't been to my house. So I can do something like that next week if you want, or maybe take a couple of weeks off and come back with that. But there is nothing left to talk about. Like, I can talk about Star Trek-y stuff. I don't know. But there's nothing else really to talk about. So if there is something you would like for me to do another live stream of collection-wise, let's see the porn collection. I don't think we have enough streams to cover that. Like I said, I think the most I have when it comes to any other collection, like if I still was collecting vinyl, I could definitely do that. The only other thing is my Tron collection, like my Tron memorabilia collection. So that's probably it. Or I can do Dungeons and Dragons stuff. Maybe. Let's see it all except for the porn collection. I agree. Because I want to stay on YouTube. How about that? I don't want to get my channel taken down. Jesus. So if there's anything you want to see me talk about in the next stream, let me know. Otherwise, it's going to end here and I go back to just doing monthly recent pickup streams, which is going to be sad because I do look forward to I was looking forward to doing these every week, and now it's kind of come to an end. Let's see my rug collection. Oh, you mean the one? That's right there. So the only thing, like I said, I can think about is maybe my Tron collection, because I have a ton of Tron stuff. I have like a Tron shrine in my living room. So I might just do that and then call it quits and say that's like the final chapter kind of thing before I can just go back to recent pickup streams. So, or I can just start over again, which I think I should probably wait a couple years on, like I did with this series. Although that did take me, like I said, 2 years to do it. So there's that. So I'll maybe be back next week on Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Central with another one. We'll see how I'm feeling about it. Let's see the Tron stuff. Okay, maybe I'll do that then. Maybe I'll take a week off, take next week off, and then do it again. Well, the week after that will be Thanksgiving Day. Never mind. It'll probably be next week then. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for coming and hanging out with me tonight. I really appreciate it. I'll probably see a couple of you during the game hunting we do. If TJ is here too somewhere. When we go and do the game hunting in Wisconsin, Black Friday. Well, it's actually Black Saturday. So thanks for coming and hanging out with me. I will talk to you all later. Stay safe out there. Chris from Midlife Crisis Media out.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!